Welcome into the NBA Morning Deuce for Monday, December 7th. 4 days away from NBA preseason. It's pretty wild if we make it that far. Just looking around the landscape of sports, and it's just not. It's not the most. What's the word?
Encouraging?
Yeah. It's not the most encouraging situation when you just look around. I'm trying to be positive, right? And I keep saying, like, if there's a league that's going to figure it out, it's the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's not even the NFL anymore. It's college basketball games just getting canceled left and right, postponed, canceled. College football teams getting pushed back 3 weeks. I just saw some big tennis tournament got canceled, and they're thinking tennis. You couldn't be further away from each other.
You really couldn't. There could not be more socially distanced. Yeah. But no, we need you to stay positive, to have that yin and yang, because I've been pessimistic this whole way about kind of getting this thing going. So we need you to stay positive.
Yeah, fair? Yeah, it's fair. Sorry, I'm adjusting this mic a little bit so it stays in my face. But yeah, I'm trying. Like I do think that the NBA will figure some stuff out. I also think that we're a lot closer to a vaccine now. So, rich people get that kind of stuff first because they can just go buy it if they need to, which is what the sports leagues will do if they feel like it works. If the players union's like, hey, it works. I don't know if they can like require players in their leagues to take vaccines.
I would guess they cannot require them, but I don't know. So what's the latest? The Blazers, right?
Yeah, I don't remember actually. I'm trying to think of like when I was working in the NBA, if they like made everyone. I feel like when I was working in the NBA, I don't know if they said to me like you have to do this, but it was sort of implied like go get the flu shot. Like they're in the training room right now, do the flu shot, because if you're the guy who gets everyone the flu and we have guys missing games because you had the flu and gave it to everybody, then come on,
right?
That was, they never said that, but it was just the implication when someone comes in and is like, hey, time to get a flu shot.
Yeah.
Go get the prick,
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do the quick COVID update because we got to go back to doing this sort of every day before we get into the rest of the show, which will be, weekend recap, not anything huge. I think, teams started training camp last week, and Sunday teams started actually practicing 5-on-5. Kyrie Irving's gonna Kyrie. And then I think we still have more. We're starting to see a little bit of the reaction and the fallout, and we're hearing from some of the people from this John Wall, James Harden trade. So we'll get into that a little bit. But first, the Blazers had to shut down their facility after 3 members of their organization tested positive for COVID. They said members of the organization, so I don't know if it necessarily means players, but they just said out of an abundance of caution. We're seeing this everywhere in sports. It's just, I guess this is just part of what it's going to be. I do wonder during the season if like a random member of the organization gets it, but it's not the players or the coaching staff. How is this going to impact practice and stuff like that?
Yeah, like would that be enough to shut down the whole organization?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
Well, and like let's just say, like, for example, in the NFL, it's the only real example that we can use at this level right now, even though, they play once a week. But in the NFL, like the Ravens can't practice, but they do virtual meetings and then they go play their game. Is that what's going to happen in the NBA? Like if a member of the organization gets COVID and they were in the building, are they going to test everyone, make everyone stay home, do virtual meetings, and then just play when they get to the just play? Which, by the way, in the NBA, I think, you need to stay fresh and practice and do all that stuff. But during the season, you could probably get away with that a little bit more because you play every other night anyways. You're playing your way into shape. Like you're not going super hard during practice. It'll hurt younger guys more than vets because a lot of vets, they're not going hard. Mm-hmm. By the time you get halfway through the season, when you're playing 2 out of 3 nights, back-to-back, stuff like that, a lot of your practices become walkthroughs and getting shots up and doing individual work. So maybe basketball, particularly the NBA, is maybe a little more built withstand something like this.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, not that game plans aren't super important in the NBA, but in the NFL, your game planning is everything. So practice, I would say, is like if you're not out there during the NFL able to practice your game plan, you're screwed. Whereas the NBA, I feel like it's more conceptual, and you can get by with less practice on a game plan.
Well, I could tell you this, like for example, on a back-to-back in the NBA. So let's say we were in New York, and then and when I was in Charlotte, let's say we were in New York and we're coming back to Charlotte. Then actually, let's go the other way. Let's say we play in Charlotte. We got to fly to New York, and we're playing in New York the next day.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do anything as a team until probably 2:00, and we're going to go to a hotel ballroom, and we're going to literally walk through the other team's plays for 30 minutes. That's it. And you show some film. Here's what they like to run. Here's your personnel report, this and that. But like, the coaches are prepped. They've been watching film, the guy whose game plan it is. But like, it's not like the players are running through tons of stuff. There's no time to do it the way the NBA season is. So the coaches have to be ready. And that's why you always hear coaches say like, oh, we're more focused on ourselves than on them. Because really you have to be, because especially players, there's just not enough time to expect a player to know every. That's why guys like LeBron it's just so incredible the way he's able to know everything that's going on for both teams on every single possession, and the rondos and that kind of stuff. But yeah, in the NBA, preparation is key for the coach, but the players, a lot of times they're just going in, as long as they know their stuff and they know the defensive principles, you just got to go with what's given to you.
Right. Makes sense. That's a nice insight. I mean, that was my hunch, was that, there weren't hours and hours spent together game planning, and it's pretty cool to learn. That's the timeline of it for a back-to-back.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's impossible. I mean, especially, teams are different now. Like, I don't know how it is now. We used to fly out the night of the game and get there that night and then sleep in and do stuff. A lot of teams will go either, if you're home, sleep at home and then fly early in the morning, or if you're on the road and you have to be back the next day. On a back-to-back, you're probably flying out that night no matter what. But for travel purposes, when I was at Florida State and in Charlotte, no matter what, whether we were playing the next day or not, we used to fly out. Now a lot of teams stay overnight, so they don't because they've realized making guys play and then making giant humans sit on a tiny plane for 3 hours.
Not good for recovery.
Not get good sleep. That type of stuff. Not healthy. So now a lot of teams stay overnight and fly the next day. And so a lot of it's changed. But yeah, for back-to-backs, that's kind of how it works. And in a compressed season where they're going to try to make things work, it's probably just how it's going to go a lot of times. The other thing that came out was the league sent more on their COVID protocols. And the most interesting thing by far is, if there are violations that cause the spread of COVID, it could result in a fine, suspension, loss of draft picks, or forfeiting games. Which I guess this might be the NBA's sort of fallback plan to not having to reschedule games and cancel games and do all that, because if you get a situation like was the Raiders, where there was that video that came out of them all dancing and celebrating in the locker room with no masks on. Mm-hmm. If that happens in the NBA and a team can't play for 2 weeks, they might just have to forfeit some games instead of having to reschedule it and mess up the whole season.
Wow, that's so wild. I mean, if they actually do, they're going to get a lot of pushback, especially if a team is in contention, and then they're just forfeiting games. I mean, it's tough to say, you caused the spread of COVID, but yeah, I guess if they're not following guidelines that are meant to prevent it from spreading, I don't know. Yeah. That would be a big step for me to just be like, that's a loss. You got a loss there.
That is tough. Yeah, that is going to be tough for them to prove that this one event caused the spread of anything.
Right. Yeah.
But loss of draft picks players don't give a shit. So
I guess
that's for the front office to try to enforce it and whatever, but players don't care. Fines, depending on the fine. I mean, obviously no one wants to get fined. The suspension, you're going to lose more money because you don't get your game check. But even forfeiting games, like you're going to get to the point in the season where teams know they're out of it, so they don't give a shit.
Right.
I don't know. It's just impossible with the way it's contracted and stuff to be able to really do this.
Yeah.
At least there's the option there. It makes it a little more scary, at least for like the teams that are competing, that are coming into the season knowing like we really have a shot. They see this, maybe they're like, all right, okay, I don't believe in COVID. COVID's not real, but I don't want to lose games, so I'm going to follow it.
And make sure I'm not letting my guys go out to
exactly.
Footsies at 3 a.m.
It's all a hoax, but losing games isn't a hoax. So
yeah.
So we'll see. But that's pretty much it. That's where we're at with COVID now. I anticipate in terms of the NBA, I feel like every day there will be something new that comes out. Let's start with some of the headlines from the most interesting thing to me that came out this past over the weekend. It might have even been what's today, the 7th. Yeah, it's like Friday. The Nets had their media day, which, usually for training camp, they make most guys available to the media. They have these short sessions. And it was Kyrie Irving. Of course, it's Kyrie Irving. He released, instead of addressing the media, he released a statement at training camp. Let me share my screen here so I'll read it also, but so for the people that are watching, you can see it if you haven't already seen it. So Kyrie released a statement saying the following: COVID-19 has impacted us all in many ways, so I pray for the safety and health of our communities domestically and abroad. I'm truly excited for the season to start. I'm also praying that everyone remains safe and healthy throughout this journey. Instead of speaking to the media, I'm issuing this statement to ensure that my message is conveyed properly. I'm committed to show up to work every day, ready to have fun, compete, perform, and win championships alongside my teammates and colleagues in the Nets organization. My goal this season is to let my work on and off the court speak for itself. Life hit differently this year, and it requires me to move differently. So this is the beginning of that change. Okay.
Can I start? I'll start.
Yeah, you can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest Kyrie basher, hater, whatever out there, but I'm fine. I'm fine with this. If Kyrie doesn't want to talk to the media, fine. He doesn't have to talk to the media. Unless there's something in his contract, he's obligated to. I don't know. I don't have.
No, there's an obligation to talk to them. It's weird. I don't know how I don't know that Kyrie is necessarily the one who's obligated to talk to the media, but I do think there are certain obligations as an NBA player that you have to at least talk to the media for a certain point, because I've even seen a few reporters saying that he and the Nets organization, I'm sure, will incur some type of fines at some point in the year.
So yeah, if he's fine with paying those fines, and I have no problem with it. Just whatever, Kyrie, that's fine. This is less of me having to hear Kyrie's bullshit in the media. And if he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to talk. We can't make people talk to these reporters if they don't trust they're going to convey the message properly. I don't know. I think it's fair. That's me.
Well, I guess to respond to your point, that it's fine. I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope. I'm the first to, I think we're both the first to admit. Look, we have a podcast where we're probably the people that he hates, because we're talking about him right now.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. For the record, Kyrie can.
But here's the thing: our livelihoods are not based off of this yet. Rate, subscribe, review on Apple Podcasts. Maybe it will be. There's a lot of people whose lives, whether you love or hate the media, and this is probably an even bigger thing, probably goes past sports, but whether you love or hate the media, there's a lot of people whose livelihoods depend on their ability to cover these players. And the guys that Kyrie doesn't like, I'm sure for the most part, are the Stephen A. Smiths, Skip Baylesses, the people who actually make headlines, who make $10 million a year, but who he's potentially impacting by doing stuff like this and starting these media blackouts. Because according to Brian Windhorst, this is a bigger plan for him to not address the media all year, to do a media blackout. But the guys that are at the games, that are asking the questions that they have every right to do because this is their job, they're not making $10 million a year like Stephen A. Smith. They're making 40, 50, 60, $70 million a year as beat writers just trying to come up in the business and cover these guys. And I'm not saying that Kyrie just not speaking is going to impact that. I do think that there's some type of like, you're sort of potentially opening the door for other players to say, oh, well, Kyrie's doing it, so I'm not going to do it. And then what happens when it starts impacting people's ability to cover the team? When you're in Brooklyn, you're a beat writer for Brooklyn. Who do you want to cover? KD and Kyrie. I can't cover Kyrie. Kyrie won't address the media. So now it impacts the job. So I think that is that. So to what you're saying, yeah, I think it does impact a certain group of people.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. I mean, it's all about that contract to me. Like, if it's in his contract that he signed that he has to address the media a certain amount of times, then this is a dick move. But I don't know, maybe this leads to down the road, like contract negotiations involve the amount of times you speak to the media. I don't know. I just don't think you can.
I think it is included.
Okay. Well,
that's why there will be fines.
Okay, but you weren't sure if it was directly to him or maybe to the team.
Yeah, but I think.
Right?
Okay. But now here's the thing. Now here's where this thing sort of goes off the rails for me. Kyrie he says basically the idea of this is for him to control the narrative. But if he's not speaking, then he's not controlling the narrative. Like, if he's just going to release a statement like this, then the narrative is going to be Kyrie doesn't like to talk to the media and Kyrie's difficult. But that's already the narrative. So what are you doing to change the narrative or control the narrative by not speaking to the media? I don't think, I don't see where he's benefiting himself by potentially losing money and also not speaking to the media instead of just doing what everyone else does. Like, Kyrie Irving's not the first person who doesn't like talking to the media and thinks the media is dumb and asks stupid questions, because there are a lot of reporters who are dumb and ask stupid questions. But they're not only asking him. But I think part of it is like the way he comes across to the media is he's a dick. So they're going to cover him like he's a dick. Like, that's just the way it goes. He could not act that way.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that's his interpretation of what's going on. I think his interpretation is everything I say to the media gets twisted. And, then they take it, like, they make their own narrative out of it. Whether that's true or not, he's saying, if I just don't talk to them, then they don't have anything to twist, which is kind of true. But you're right. It doesn't let him control the narrative. It just gives the media less things to twist around. I don't know. Kyrie's the smartest guy in the room. I mean, we just have to accept that, Yeah,
but that's the thing. So with Kyrie, I mean, I think I've even said it on this. I think we've talked about it on here. Like, in general, at least in my experience, I'm sure this is your experience too. Like, the guy in the room who thinks he's the funniest guy in the room is never the funniest guy in the room. Or the guy who like thinks he's the strongest guy in the room and can kick everyone's ass has probably never been in a fight. The guy who like goes out of his way to be the smartest guy in the room is probably not that smart. He might be smart. He's not the smartest guy in the room. And the reason why Kyrie gets covered the way he gets covered is because he's trying so hard to come across as the smartest guy in the room. But he's also doing that to a group of people who went to school for 4 years, probably 6 years, 7 years, degrees in journalism, went to really good schools. Not that makes them smarter, but worked their asses off to be smart and be good at their jobs. And he talks to them like they're children. Like, oh, yeah. You don't understand the way it is to be a professional athlete and the media, like that whole shit. He can say things like what he believes in a way that doesn't come across as a complete asshole. And then
I agree.
He would be controlling the narrative.
Right, but
he doesn't have to change his opinion. Like Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook's a guy who he blatantly, you can tell doesn't like addressing the media for the most part. But the only thing people crush about him is his game. But that's the way it works. That's NBA. That's the life of being a professional athlete. But no one's like, God, Russ is he's such an asshole. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. They're just like, okay, this is Russ. If Kyrie would just treat it that way, they'd be like, all right, that's just Kyrie. He's just difficult with the media, whatever. But it's the way he comes across with the whole here than now thing, and I'm the smartest guy in the room. It's terrible.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's capable of being any other way. I really don't. I think that's who he is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way. Like for example, I think about when I think about like the smartest guy in the room thing. I think about Jaylen Brown, right? When Jaylen Brown came into the draft, there was the reports that came out that were like, he plays the piano and he plays chess and he took grad level classes at Cal and he turned down offers from better basketball schools to go to Cal Berkeley. He may be too smart for the NBA. And then when you listen to him talk, it's like, yeah, this guy's pretty intelligent, but he lets his intelligence speak for itself. He's not out here trying to make these philosophical points and this and that and whatever. Kyrie, I get it, man. People are that way sometimes, but like, it seems so blatant that he's trying to be that guy instead of just being that guy.
Exactly. Well, that's
what people don't like.
Yeah. I mean, not only is Jaylen Brown very intelligent in terms of different subjects, he's also socially intelligent. He knows how to speak to people to make his points appreciated. Kyrie doesn't have that. He has no social intelligence, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
Yeah, the way he speaks to people, it's off-putting all the time, and that's why people write the things they do about Kyrie Irving. But
right. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because by all accounts, and I will caveat it by saying this, I consider the Kyrie thing similar to the Boogie thing, right? Like Boogie, not in terms of trying to be the smartest guy in the room, but there's like the narrative that Boogie's not a good teammate or he's an asshole because of the way he plays on the floor and all that. But off the court, the guy wins awards for this stuff he does in his community. By all accounts, Kyrie is actually truly like a really good person. Like he gave a bunch of money to the WNBA players last year when they couldn't play, and he donates money here. I mean, he does a lot of really good stuff that he doesn't have to do. So by all accounts, the guy is a good dude. But I think your point is perfect. Like his social awareness is so, it's like he may have a high IQ, but his EQ is 0.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
You know what I mean?
Exactly what I'm getting at. Yeah.
But somebody in his circle, there's got to be somebody in his circle that could be like, dude, you can handle this a little better. But he just doesn't truly doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Which is fair. I mean, I guess to your point, yeah, it's fair.
That's kind of where, he doesn't, if he's going to pay the fines or do whatever, then fine. You can't force him to talk. So,
well, I guess, yeah, that's true. You can't force him if he's willing to pay fines if they're going to fine him.
Yeah. Weird one. Something tells me this is not the last time Kyrie Irving will be addressing the media this year.
But here's the other, and here was the last thing that I think Kyrie, he always has this thing of, I'm not just a basketball player. I want to be remembered. I'm more than a basketball player. I want to be remembered by, but like the more he does shit like this, people aren't going to remember him as a basketball player. They're not going to remember him as a scholar. They're not going to remember him as anything other than difficult.
Yes, exactly.
So he's only hurting his own legacy by just continuing to do stupid shit or perceived stupid shit. Maybe he revolutionizes the way players have to deal with media. Who knows? But the perception is just making his legacy seem like he's just a dick.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Whether it's fair, whether that's a fair perception on my end or not.
Yeah, again, because by all accounts, he's probably a really good dude, or seemingly a good. He does what he can.
Mm-hmm.
But if he really wants his legacy to be like, I'm more than a basketball player, I'm this, I'm that, just let your intelligence speak for itself. Don't try so hard, bro.
Yeah.
Try a little harder to just stay on the court and play basketball. Just try a little harder to do that. That was the story that I had the most like on my mind over the weekend because that whole situation was just It's just absurd to me. The best story that came out this weekend was that the Hawks reportedly offered the Kings. Oh, that graphic's wrong. So the Hawks reportedly offered the Kings a future first round pick for a sign and trade for Bogdan Bogdanovic that the Kings turned down and then didn't match his offer sheet. So the Kings got nothing. Probably the most Kings move I've ever heard of.
So my interpretation, they had nothing to lose, right? They had nothing to lose. Like, it was only beneficial to accept the offer, right?
Right. So here's the thing about the pick was the Thunder's 2022 first round pick, lottery protected, and if they didn't get it in 2022, then it becomes a 2024 and a 2025 two second round picks in 2024 and 2025. So maybe the Kings were like, we can do better or whatever, but they didn't.
So
and then they didn't match, so they got nothing. Like it's.
So here's the only thing, and maybe I'm missing something, but like maybe this was so just in spite of like, fuck you, we're the Kings. If we do that, the Hawks bring him on with his bird rights, and they're just like, fuck, you're not getting his bird rights. Is that possible? Like, if it's a sign and trade, then they bring him in with the bird rights, and they let Sacramento, or they let the Hawks.
From the stuff I read, it sounds like they just didn't like that pick because of the protections.
But they had to know that
by all accounts in 2022 the Thunder are going to be in the lottery.
Right,
so
they
had to become 2 second round picks. But if you're the Kings, like, why not just get 2 assets?
That's what I'm saying. They had to know that he was going to, like, if they didn't match it, he was going to go there. So why not? I don't know. It's bizarre. This would be one if it was any other franchise. It'd be like, I don't really buy that report. But since it's the Kings, I'm like, well, that probably is exactly what happened. Like,
yeah.
what are they doing?
Now there's another report out that says that any deal that potentially happens for Buddy Hield, they want draft capital. Not that there's not a deal that's imminent, but if a deal happens, they want draft capital. But they didn't want just free picks for a guy that they weren't going to sign anyways. And here's the crazy thing. They have a new GM. This is not the old guard just doing stupid shit. This is a new GM, but same thing. How is that possible?
I don't know. I mean, it is possible that the reports are bullshit, but it's just so sad that it's also totally plausible. That's how
I'm not totally sure that the Hawks thing is even a report anymore. I think it was an offer
out.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I could be wrong about that, but by the way, did you see the 3-point ratings came out for 2K and Buddy Hield's not in the top 10.
Really?
And he won the 3-point contest last year.
Yeah.
He responded to it on Twitter with a picture of him holding up the 3-point.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, he should probably be in the top 10.
I would think so.
Like at 9 or 10, I guess. I don't know.
Or maybe higher. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was funny. Okay. So that was my favorite story of the weekend because just we kill the Kings so much on here, but they do it to themselves.
They really do. They really do. Like, they're just setting themselves up to just get knocked down every time.
What would you be willing to? I'm on the fence about saying that the Thunder end up with a better record than the Kings.
No, I'm not going to
playing harder and not becoming, because the thing is, I think the Thunder, and I'm probably wrong. I'm almost certainly wrong about this. Thunder have a very legitimate shot of having the worst record in the NBA next year, but the Thunder are young, and I think NBA players are not stupid. I don't think there's a player on the Thunder's roster who's like, we're going to win a title next year. So they go into the season with nothing to lose, but just playing hard and getting better. So the Kings have been a fringe playoff team for so long that they go into next season thinking, all right, we got to make the playoffs eventually. And then when they get to the point in the middle of the season where it's like, God, we're not a playoff team, that thing, they could give up like that.
I don't think it's ridiculous. I just think from the Thunder standpoint, it is so crystal clear for management that the goal is to lose as many games as possible this season. That to me, they are the strong front runner for worst record in the league. Like we talked with that Oubre trade, they want to lose this year. The Kings probably should want to lose this year, but
tell that to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, that sucks.
And Darius Baisley.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying they're going to play though. They're going to play hard.
I know. Yeah, they're going to play hard.
Their G League coach that they just hired, who's trying to prove that he deserves to be a head coach. Now he may have a thing with Presti, kind of like how your boy had with Hinkie, where it's like, look, we're going to lose. Like we got to lose. We got to get these picks. That's possible.
I think that's
even that. What?
I think that is the case.
But even that, eventually, they'll learn this in OKC if they don't build the right way through the draft or get the right. After 2 or 3 years of that, if you're just getting pounded out every year, the pressure starts to go on somebody, and then it generally goes on the coach. Like, why aren't they getting better? These are the guys we brought in to become better. Why aren't they? And that guy. So if I'm that guy, I'm trying to win games. I don't give a shit what they say. I'm trying to win games because even when this thing's over, if he's out in 3 years or if he's out in 2 or 3 or 4 years and they never got better, I want to at least on my resume be like, look at what I did with this shitty ass roster.
Yeah.
It's hard for you to tell me in my first ever head coaching job, we're going to lose games. Like I'm going out there to win every game.
Yeah. No, I believe that the people on the court and the coach will want to win games, but that Ross, like if they even start sniffing, a 3-game win streak, they'll trade somebody or get rid of somebody.
Yep. All right. So John Wall and Russell Westbrook both addressed the media for the first time with their new teams. We'll start with Wall. Part of what he said was basically the biggest thing that came out of his address he said he anticipates being back at an all-star level. We'll see. Hasn't played in a while. He was 28 the last time he played basketball. He is now 30. But he says that him and James, Stephen Silas has not spoken or has not been in communication with Harden regularly. John Wall says he has been in communication with James Harden and anticipates, he says that they've been on the same page since he got traded and that Harden wants to be in Houston.
Okay.
Now, Harden missed the first day of training camp 5-on-5 because now if I'm wrong about this, someone leave a comment or tweet at us at NBA Morning Deuce and let me know. He was at Lil Baby's birthday party, and I believe he's had to quarantine since then. So he hasn't gotten through the protocol to be able to be at. Or maybe
that's true.
Birthday or something. There was something involving Lil Baby because I saw some like Twitter videos of him giving him presents and stuff. But I'm pretty sure it was something like he was recently at a thing, and he couldn't practice with the team today. That's why he's not there.
Yeah.
Because he's not through the protocol yet.
I don't know. My natural reaction is to read too much into that. And like, that says to me, he really doesn't want to be there. He really doesn't give a shit, but maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know. That's just a really bad look for me. And if I'm a Rockets fan, I'm getting pretty nervous because it's one thing to hear all these reports, he doesn't want to be here, blah, blah, blah. But then he misses the first thing because he was partying. Now you're like, oh, yeah, okay, he really, really doesn't want to be here, does he?
Like doing everything he can to get traded.
Yeah, like that's clearly what that signals to me.
Yeah. I'm starting to lean towards how fun would it be to see a Houston Rocket-led team that's just led by John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. Like, I'm starting to lean towards get James Harden somewhere where he can win a title, potentially win a title, and let John Wall and Boogie be the leaders of a team with a bunch of just like random talented guys.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be great. They wouldn't even they potentially might not be good. They'd be fun.
They would be fun. They definitely would be fun.
My guy, Stephen Silas, but they'd be fun.
They'd be a nuisance, I bet. If they're playing hard, they would be a nuisance. Like they'll feel like a team like that shouldn't be good, but is winning a bunch of games. And
think about like just if Boogie's if they're both healthy, just Boogie, John Wall pick and rolls all night. Boom, boom, boom. Get Karis LeVert out there knocking down jumpers. Jared Allen blocking shots.
Christian Wood. You haven't mentioned my boy Christian
Wood. Christian Wood in pick and rolls with John Wall would be nice too. I'm just like assuming that if it happens, it's the Nets, because I don't know who else has the deal to make other than the Hawks.
The Hawks.
Yeah, the Hawks are the team. We'll see, but I agree with you. It's just when you see him doing stuff like that and he's not at the first day of practice, it makes it seem like you truly, regardless of any reports, that he's doing what he can to not be there.
Yeah, that's my takeaway.
And I'm starting to think like, hey, let's just, for the good of the NBA, like let's make the Nets a juggernaut or a perceived juggernaut, and let's make the Rockets like a fun ass team. Like they're fun with Harden, because they're going to be a playoff team and whatever. But a team in 2020 that's led by John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins is super fun.
Both coming off horrendous injuries.
Wall coming off a horrendous injury, Boogie coming off like 3 injuries.
Yeah.
Coming off 2 injuries that happened after a horrendous injury. Mm-hmm. Both the same injury, right? Both torn Achilles.
Oh, I didn't actually know that that's what Wall had. Okay.
I think he had a torn Achilles. Yeah, he tore something because he hasn't played in a long time.
Something got torn at some point.
Yeah. On the other side, you got Russell Westbrook, who he said a couple things. One was he said he doesn't plan to change his style of play in Washington. The other thing was they were asked, like, you're used to winning and competing, and what do you see the chances of like winning, the opportunity to potentially win a title? And he said it was really high. People took it and ran with it. Like, what else is he going to say?
Exactly. And this goes right back to the Kyrie Irving thing of like, the media is going to distort this and say he's so ridiculous. What the hell is he supposed to say? Like, yeah, we're probably not going to even come close to winning a title this year. He's not going to say that. Like, but of course people are going to run with it. It's just a lose-lose for these athletes to be in these press conferences sometimes. But
I will say this, as I was, sort of reading articles about this trade and on Twitter, looking at the trade and then listening to these guys talk, I did want to like sort of go back to something that we talked about a little bit on the show when the trade happened. I think there's this idea that because they had the same contract and because the only deal to make was to move them for each other, that this was an even trade. And I think people have to understand that at no point in John Wall's career was he even close to Russell Westbrook. And I have always been very hard on Russell Westbrook as a player. You know this forever. I've been hard on Russell Westbrook. But that's mainly because when we talk about Russell Westbrook, we talk about a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA when he was doing what he was doing. We've never talked about John Wall that way ever. He's not even close. Like, I think people are just under this assumption that it's a wash and they just swapped the same player. They didn't. Washington got a first ballot Hall of Famer who is still an all-star, who has led the league in scoring twice, who averaged 30 points in a triple-double and took a shitty team to the playoffs by himself and averaged a triple-double 3 consecutive years in the NBA. So no matter how much I hated on Russell Westbrook for and it wasn't even a hated thing. It was just like as good as he is, he'll never be the player who can lead you to a championship because he can't shoot thing. But Russell Westbrook is much better than John Wall. Like, I don't think that it's particularly close. And then when you take into account the last time John Wall played basketball, he was 28. Now he's 30. I think people have to get it out of their heads that this was like an even trade. It wasn't an even trade. Washington got much better. Washington went from a non-playoff team to a playoff team. And we're talking about like the Rockets having John Wall and Boogie leading them because it'll be a fun shit show. Like, like I don't you feel that way? Like seeing people react to it, that people think like, oh, this was just an even trade because of the money, but it's not an even trade. They got a whole thing.
Yeah. And even in terms of like the talent going in each direction, it's not an even trade. I think probably the reason I glazed over it is just because like the Rockets' hands were forced completely and they actually got some value in return for Russell Westbrook, which
that remains to be seen too.
Right.
Well, they got the pick.
Yeah, they got the pick. Yeah, they get the pick.
Right. They got a pick.
They did. Yeah. The other thing, just to kind of go off of that, is when Brad Beal and John Wall were healthy and playing together, like the Wizards were really good. So if we know Russell Westbrook is a step up from John Wall. It's not the exact same team from a couple years ago when the Wizards were a really good team in the East. So the Wizards are a player in the East for me with Russell Westbrook and Brad Beal. I mean, I think that might be sliding under the radar a little bit just because of how horrible Wizards have been. But this is a playoff team to me.
I mean, it's easily. Well, I shouldn't say easily because I didn't even think about it before I was about to say it. But I'd go as far as to say is just without going team by team, it's the best backcourt in the East, right?
Well, the Hawks. I mean, just because of the depth they have. I mean, Trae Young and is Bogdanovic
the second leading scorer in the NBA and an all-star who averaged a triple-double, who when he wants to averages a triple-double at will.
Okay, it's much better.
Trae Young's really good.
Yeah,
but Trae Young and anybody on that team are not better than Russ and Beal right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of a backcourt in the East. You could put them right up there with almost any backcourt in the league right now. Just 1, 2. I mean, are they better than Dame and CJ? Just as high as we put Beal right now, right? Because Beal is the key there, right? Second in this league in scoring last year, and still maybe hasn't even reached his full potential.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, in the scope of of the regular season, yes, definitely. I don't know if it extends to the playoffs just because Russell Westbrook's game is just such a bummer sometimes with all the 3-pointers. That's why I'm hesitant. I mean, he's just such a weird player because there's no denying the talent. There's no denying how good he is, but there's also no denying like he's not going to get a championship anytime soon.
Oh yeah. But I will say this: one thing that is interesting is he's going. You know, the Scott Brooks thing is interesting too because they asked Scott Brooks about Russ at practice, and Scott Brooks basically said that like at some point in practice, Russell Westbrook interrupted him and was like, "Man, we're running a lot of the same stuff we used to run in Oklahoma City." So like, there's a comfort level already. Mm-hmm. He's going in there already, sort of knowing his role and how he fits, and it's not like and again, when he was in Oklahoma City, he was the point guard with Scott Brooks next to a guy who averaged 30 a game. So this is not a new situation for him. He's just older and his jumper has gotten worse, which is hard to believe. But yeah, they're going to be good. I mean, they're going to be good. And I guess my whole point was just the whole, like, this is even because of the money thing. It's just right. to even consider John Wall ever as close to what Russ has accomplished or was as a player in the league. John Wall was really good, and the injury sucks. But here's the other thing: when you and this will be the last thing on this. When you look at the contracts right now, they both look shitty. When Russell Westbrook signed his contract, you understood it. Yeah, he triple-double every year, MVP, first player to do it since Oscar Robertson, Oklahoma City. You got to do it. When John Wall signed his deal, they were like, holy shit, John Wall is going to make $50 million a year at one point. No, this is not real. Like, even the people who were like, John Wall's great, he's an all-star, were like, what the fuck? This is not a real contract. You have to remember back to that, which it seems, again, like ages ago. But no one could believe the deal that John Wall got. Everyone understood Russell Westbrook. You got to give him that money, whether you like him or not.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do. Maybe I'm remember. I mean, I just felt like with the Wall contract that he was going to get a max from somebody, so the Wizards had to do it. I don't know. I feel like John Wall had been playing at a high enough level where you're like, hey, he's got to get the max. You know, not one that you were necessarily excited about, but
I think he was one of the first deals under, like when the Supermax. Yeah. I think he may have been the first Supermax. In fact, or one of the first ones, and the cap had gone up substantially. Mm-hmm. I think when he got his deal, no one understood. I think, at least me, I don't think people really understood where contracts were headed and saw it and were like, yeah, he's going to get a max deal. But at the end of his deal, he's going to be making $47 million in a single season.
Yeah.
It was like, no one deserves that. Even at that time, you're probably like, no one deserves that.
Yeah.
But definitely not John Wall, who's averaging 20 and 10.
Right. And then you also have, you're looking through the lens of 2 years of injury. It looks horrible, but yeah, at the time it wasn't ideal at all.
Right. So, I think I just wanted to clarify Russ is better than John Wall. For those of you who needed clarification on that, which it seems like maybe there's a few people who do. I still think it's so. Don't you think it's crazy the way these 180s happen in sports in general? But like, you're like, I did not like Russ's game even when he was MVP. I was like, this guy, you can't win with this guy. Everyone's like, this guy is one of the best players ever, top 5, this and that. And now people like, now he's not averaging 30, 10, and 10, and people are like,
he's a bum.
I can't play anymore. Can't win with Russell Westbrook. Bad team. It's just like, wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah. At 32 years old, most guys aren't going to average 30, 10, and 10. He's still one of the best point guards in the NBA. He's still an all-star. He's still really damn good. Like, and people just are like, get it. Go to Washington.
It's NBA Twitter, man. It's how it operates. It's so immediate. It's just such a recency bias driven thing. And I'm like that. I'm like that all the time too. I'm not like, damning Twitter or anything. I act that way too, but it's just the way we are. I'm
telling you, man, I have a good gauge for the guys that NBA fans are going to turn on down the line.
That's true.
I have a pretty good gauge for that stuff. And Russ was one of the like first ones when I realized, like, yeah, dude, give it a couple of years. You'll all see. Last one, we don't have to talk about too much from the weekend, but I just thought this was amazing. Mitchell Robinson fired Rich Paul, which seems like it was against the rules in the NBA. I can't even imagine a world where an NBA player fires Rich Paul. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I thought it was crazy when I saw it. Just like the way crazy. Rich Paul runs the NBA right now, who would you rather be with?
It's crazy, except when you consider it's Mitchell Robinson. And I feel like early on, I did send you an interview with this guy. Like, this dude is a straight up bona fide like movie character. He's hilarious.
Yeah, something
he's gotten
better. He's gotten better.
Yeah,
I remember when you sent me those early high school interviews, I was like, and this is no offense, but like he seemed like he was a little on the spectrum a little bit.
Yeah, he did. And that really isn't. I mean, technically everyone is on the spectrum, but yeah, right, he's just a little goofy. I mean?
Like, he just, the way he talked, there was something not totally there, but I watched his training camp interviews with the media. Mm-hmm. He speaks a lot better and clearer now and all that. But like, I remember when you sent me those.
So the point is that I'm trying to make is like, this guy's always been kind of like this mysterious dude to me because his athleticism and his ability is fucking crazy. It's off the charts. And it just seems like he's a guy that if he ever puts it together is going to be like really scary. But then you couple that with this kind of like weird character persona. I'm not surprised he fires Rich Paul. I think this guy's got a lot of headlines in his future where you're like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, I guess the Knicks are already like disappointed with him this offseason that he didn't come in early to work with the new coaching staff. Like he's just showing up for training camp.
And that is the opposite of everything we heard his like rookie year. Like he was apparently the staff, the front office loved him for how dedicated he was.
Actually, I'm going to try to find the video. Have you seen him?
Not super recently. No. Is he huge?
Oh my God. Like when he was doing his interviews, you can only see him from like the chest, like up. But,
when you talk about physical tools, like, oh,
look at him. He looks huge.
He looks closer to Shaq than like,
yeah, I know.
Oh, maybe he's just,
maybe it's the way he's sitting, but his face looks huge. Like I don't know, but I can't tell if he's fat or jacked or what, but he does not look like the same person.
No, he doesn't. So maybe he had a really bad quarantine and that's why they're unhappy.
I mean, his face doesn't look, I mean, he has a beard, so you can't really tell, but I wouldn't consider that like a chiseled jawline.
No, he looks kind of fat to me.
Yeah.
To be totally honest.
Yeah. That's not ideal.
No.
We'll see how this, see how this works out for him. I mean, hey, he's still a valuable piece. If the Knicks aren't happy, I'm sure they could get some stuff for him because he's one of the more valuable players they have right now with his upside.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, that's all we got from the weekend. The recap headlines. Basketball name of the week. We kind of glossed over. We had already talked about him. Full disclosure, I have I didn't really have I kind of slacked on finding a good name for this week, but I inadvertently maybe found the best name. When I was researching John Wall's career stats, I was on Basketball Reference, and I found his full name, which is Jonathan Hildred Wall. His middle name's Hildred.
I think that perfectly slots in for NBA Name of the Week. I've never heard that. It almost seems like it was Hilliard and it was like written poorly on his birth certificate.
Let me double check to make sure that I didn't. No, it's
Hildred. Maybe it's just a super old name, but it doesn't really. I can't name another Hildred. Can't name
Jonathan
one.
Hildred Wall Jr. And Jonathan is spelled JOHNATHAN, which is also weird.
Okay.
Because isn't Jonathan usually JON?
Yeah, if you're spelling it out, I believe it is. Yeah, normally.
Yeah. Also, his nicknames, according to Basketball Reference, are Optimus Dime.
Never heard it. Pretty good, though.
And Tupac.
What? How is his nickname Tupac? That can't be a nickname. Tupac, like a lot of people are Biggie, like Biggie's number one. Tupac is my number one favorite rapper of all time.
How is a guy who was born and raised in North Carolina have a nickname Tupac? How can you be from the East Coast and your nickname's Tupac?
Tupac spent a lot of time in Baltimore. I think he grew up in Baltimore, and then before going, he was like his teenage years were in Baltimore, so maybe he got the name when he.
John Wall know about that. John Wall's 30.
I'm saying maybe some jamoke in Washington gave it to him when he showed up there. I don't know. That doesn't. No, I don't like that. I don't like the nickname Tupac for him. Is there a two? Is it the two? Like, is it because he
spelled like the rapper Tupac?
Does he wear number 2? This is pissing me off. I'll do some research. I'll follow up.
He does. But is that why?
I don't know. That wouldn't be enough for me. I don't know.
He does wear number 2. I don't know how you even came to that conclusion.
Yeah, because I remember him number 2. But that's weird.
He was the first pick though, so
yeah. So
it's not about that. Number 2 and the second pick. A lot of 2s.
Then it could work.
Let's call him 2 Chainz. East Coast rapper. He probably wears a chain at some point in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Any other 2s?
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be a rapper. It could just be anything with the word 2 in it.
Yeah. See, damn it. Since we did that live stream, that dude said we were cringy. Now I'm it's when we try to have fun here, I'm worried if we're being cringy.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, cringy's funny, dude.
Yeah, deal with it. We're aware. We're self-aware, dude.
I think that's it for today.
Okay.
Leave a comment, subscribe, rate, subscribe to the channel right there. It's like right under Alex, I think. It might be right under me. I don't know. Leave a comment, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, and we will see you tomorrow. Later.
YouTube.